When someone from the country dresses up to go into town or down to the big smoke, he wears what's become a traditional outfit. He stands out in the crowded city streets like a proverbial sore thumb. From the hat on his head down to his elastic-sided riding boots, he's instantly recognisable as a bushie. And it's a fair bet that he's bought a lot of his gear from here. R.M. Williams, the biggest stockman's outfitters in the country. From station owners to ringers and jackaroos, the R.M. Williams mail-order catalogue has been an essential part of country life. Everything for the horse and rider is here. But it's his elastic-sided riding boots that have made this company so famous, and its founder, R.M. Williams, a fortune. Over 10 million pairs of boots like these have come off the assembly line in the last 50 years. R.M., as he's known by everyone, has not had an idle life. Besides running the outfitting business, he's also been a camel driver, stockman, explorer, tea planter, and back in the late 40s, he became a multi-millionaire as a partner in the richest gold mine in the Northern Territory. He's become a living legend in outback Australia, the epitome of the bushman he's trying so hard to immortalise for generations to come. At the age of 73, it's a project which would be daunting for far younger men.
And you're listening to ABC Radio 3 on 4QL Longreach, with the time at 15 minutes past 6. It's a cloudy day in Longreach this morning with the possibility of some light rain, and the Weather Bureau advises that we can expect gusty southeast winds later in the day.
The weather these days is all important to RM. He and his two sons are camped out under the stars. They've rolled out their swags on the outskirts of Longreach, the site of the Stockman's Hall of Fame and Outback Heritage Centre.
Cool day today, mate, eh?
A project that RM now sees as one of the most important of his life. He's supervising the first step, the building of a solid stone cottage.
You better roll that swag tight, Johnny. Make it a pack horse swag.
Right for another day, eh?
Breakfast is 5 or 6 Weet-Bix and a spoonful of honey. A refrigerator is the only concession to luxury in this makeshift humpy. Their camp looks more like a chook run, covered with hessian, than a home for a couple of months for a millionaire.
Well, we stay on the job because we start early and we finish late. We couldn't put up with motel hours. We'll be on the job here before most people get started.
But it's a bit primitive. I mean, and surely you'd have the money to live in a motel, wouldn't you?
Oh, it's no different to what I've been used to most of my life, I think. The first 5 years I was married, I lived in the swag, and I like it this way.
On the hard ground?
Well, it's comfortable for me, anyhow.
Comfortable in which way, though?
Well, I've got no worries here to put up with people's times and pushing me around and going to meals when they want to call me and so on. Besides which, much cheaper.
Do you think it's part of that stockman's life that you obviously enjoyed in the past, that you are a bit of a loner and you can do whatever you want?
Oh, I think you do what you want to do. I find this very comfortable. And the boys are here with me, and we find this is a very nice way of living. It's living outdoors, and I suppose there's a certain amount of pleasure in that.
His pleasure is shared by 2 of his 9 children, of 2 marriages. Peter, who gave up aerial mustering to give his dad a hand, and John, who normally looks after one of the 4 family properties.
John! Some water!
Helping the Williams to build the cottage is local drover Bob Sadler and Johnny the Rouseabout, son of the chairman of the board of the Hall of Fame, artist Hugh Sorey. And there's no shortage of other casual workers willing to put in a couple of days for nothing to help preserve history. The idea of building this outback heritage centre for Australian pioneers, stockmen, poets and explorers is to collect and store for all time the memories and traditions of those often forgotten men and women who opened up the huge unexplored tracts of inland Australia. Longreach was chosen for the site because it's in the heart of that pioneering country. The life and spirit of the outback is still here. It's the gateway to Burke and Wills country, Cooper's Creek, Sandhills and the Min Min Light. Outback towns like Winton and Barcaldine and country far inland are attracting increasing numbers of tourists. All go through Longreach. And at the airport, there are still the first signs of that now internationally famous Queensland and Northern Territory Air Service. Qantas set up its first effective headquarters here in 1921.
Well, Longreach is the crossroads of the West. It's on the road to Mount Isa, it's on the road to Ayers Rock, if you like, and tourist-wise, it'll be the biggest project west of Brisbane, between, say, Brisbane and Ayers Rock, if you like. Tourists will come through here, but apart from that, it is centre of the West.
And you convinced people are going to come here?
I'm sure if we put the material which we've got in mind here, this will become the archives of the whole of the nation. This is a cottage to start the whole project rolling. We need a place for the architect to put out their plans, and where there's a toilet block and somewhere for the engineers to have their lunch and that sort of thing. It'll be the caretaker's cottage afterwards, and it's no bigger than an ordinary house really, except that it'll have a very wide veranda.
And why is it built like it is?
Well, the alternative would have been perhaps a tin shed now, but we did this to see what local stone would do, what it would cost, and how long it would take it to do it, and how it would compare with other materials like bricks or concrete or glass or whatever the architects might use.
In relation to this building, where will the main Stockman's Hall of Fame be?
Roughly about 200 yards away on my right. And the spot where we're standing will be right in the centre of the road, which is being landscaped from the aerodrome just over here. It'll sweep past here and on past the big building.
At this stage, the complex is just a model and a series of architects' drawings.
As yet, there's no place in Australia where the story of our pioneers has been collected in a manner that's accessible to the public. Well, there are 5 sections, 5 fairly large buildings. One for the Australian authors and poets, and our famous stockman will be presented. Then there will be a hall where the people who took up the country will have the stories of their pioneering efforts recorded. There's a hall for our Rough Riders, our famous old horsemen. The other hall, we hope to collect the material of all the explorations.
The cost of building these halls is estimated to be in the region of $4 million. It's hoped this will be raised by public donations and assistance from the Queensland government. Although the Hall of Fame is still short of this target figure, it certainly hasn't been short on publicity. This was the start of the first Golden Horseshoe endurance ride in 1980, a gruelling 250-kilometre race from Winton to Longreach, an event that seems to conjure up the spirit and meaning of those who opened up these vast tracts of country. It's now an annual ride to promote the Hall of Fame. Promotion has played a big part in getting the memorial off the ground. The influence of its high-powered board of directors hasn't gone astray either. Names like Dame Mary Durack Miller, Defence Minister Jim Killen, Queensland Grazier Sir James Walker and Lady Clark, wife of cattle baron Sir Rupert Clark, have all helped move the project along. But it's this man, the Honorary Secretary, who's worked hardest for its success. It's from here these days that he cajoles and hustles large corporations for donations to the Heritage Centre, and persuades with his quiet charm all manner of people to voluntarily give their time to further its cause. Sunday is a day of rest for those working on the cottage. For RM, it means he can put his trowel down and pick up the reins of a horse and go for a ride with his droving mate, Bob Sadler, for he's known and loved horses all his life.
When I got a family, I had to do something other than just wander about, and old Sir Sidney Kidman gave me a start making pack saddles, and that started me off. And since then I've made every kind of horse gear, but it's one thing's followed another.
Pack saddles and horse gear are all the tools of the trade for an Australian stockman. His image is one of a hard-working, strong, silent type. Our stockman's image is so different from his counterpart in the United States, the cowboy, who Americans have immortalised in their own particular way, Hollywood style.
Well, from the days of the silent films, America's glamorised the Wild West with fellows like Tom Mix and other famous movie stars that have more or less brought to the younger generation the idea that America grew up on a gunfighting Wild West image, but Australia's got wider deserts and longer distances and a drier continent and a much more difficult continent in many ways than America's got, and it bred a nation of pioneers whose story and history have not been remembered very well, and the Hall of Fame job is to bring that image and the whole story back to the Australian public and make it available for them so that historians in future can have the material. That's what we're doing here at Longreach now.
But did those bushmen have the same sort of life? I mean, were there shootings and killings in the bush in those days?
Oh, I think so. I think probably we didn't have any famous gunmen, you know, like Wild Bill Hickok and all those fellows that were reputedly be fast on the draw, but we've had our gunmen, yeah.
Have you known those fellows?
I've known fellows that were quite willing to shoot people, yeah. Quite willing.
And have you seen sort of some of those things happen?
Oh, those are not the kind of things you talk about too much.
But you have?
I have, yeah.
Seen people shot?
Well, I've seen people killed, yes, but you know, I wouldn't like to be a material witness.
It's going back a long way, presumably. We're going back 50 or 60 years.
Yeah.
What were the sorts of things that happened in those days?
Well, I've buried men not even known what their name was, and I'm sure that we've had just as wild happenings in Australia's history as what ever happened in America.
Why did you have to bury those men?
Well, I suppose it's just because nobody knew their name.
And had they been killed?
Oh, brawls mostly. You know, I've seen gunfights and I've seen knife fights, but our bush in the early days was just as wild, and the pub brawls were just as willing as any that America had, Albert.
The movement to get the Stockman's Hall of Fame off the ground has come only just in time, according to its chairman and one-time stockman turned artist, Hugh Sorey.
Well, if we hadn't got off the ground now, it would have been a non-entity. It was just imperative that we get it off the ground.
Why would it have been a non-entity?
Well, all the history was being lost of Australia. We've got lots of books and what have you written by pretty good authors, but the real grassroots were being lost, and it was just essential that we get it all together.
And what about the efforts of RM? Because
well, he's an indomitable character. I don't think without him we wouldn't have got it all to this stage you see here. He's a pretty martinet type of, you know, he marshals all the fellas around and cracks the whip out and gets them all working. You know.
RM, you've told me you're a bit of a gambler. Do you see this project as a bit of a gamble?
Not the way it's been accepted by the people. The acceptance of the Australian public of this has been, shall we say, universal. The enthusiasm is something we never expected.
So you wouldn't...
Both high and low. Pensioners and Stockman and old fogies, fellows that have in old folks' homes that have been drovers, and chaps on the Birdsville Road and the Morrinjai, they've all come in as members.
And when do you think it's going to be up?
Oh, the sooner we get started, the quicker we finish. It won't be long.
The sooner the better.
The sooner the better.
Speed is now the essence of this project. Old stockmen are not getting any younger. The memories and adventures of those who drove their great mobs of cattle out into the unknown silent plains are becoming clouded. Without the Hall of Fame and the drive and persistence of men like R.M. Williams, the exploits of those hard-working, independent men who opened up Australia could well have just faded away as easily as the trail of dust that they inevitably left behind them.